Welcome to DACM Insights, where we explore the intersection of traditional wealth management and digital assets. Whether an institutional investor exploring digital assets or a wealth advisor helping clients understand this space, you'll get practical insights from leaders who are actively managing real money in both traditional and digital assets, and the entrepreneurs building the disruptive tech that drives the space so exponentially. Hi everyone, I wanted to welcome Fred Schebesta to DACM Insights. Fred, thanks for joining me.
Wonderful to be sharing with you, as always.
We've known each other a long time, Fred, pretty much since the days I think my crypto journey started, and we've seen the technology develop. So I think there'll be a bunch of stuff we can talk about today.
Sure. Very exciting.
Fred, you're a successful tech founder. You've been around technology your whole working career. Front and foremost, in and growing Finder into an incredible business. Do you just want to give us a 30-second snapshot on what Finder does for the viewers?
Yeah, Finder is a place where people go to get deals on their finances, their utilities, and we compare all the different products, and then, basically you can save a bunch of money. We've been doing that it's almost been 15 years, which is a very long time. We rolled this out. I started in Australia, then we're in the US, UK, Canada, and obviously around the world with Finder.com. And it's been a constant journey of recreation and reinventing the business all the time. And a long journey.
Part of that journey, starting off in, providing advice around traditional products, you intersected with the crypto. Can you just tell us how your journey, how Finder found its way to crypto, and how you see that intersection of, I guess, the traditional products that you kind of built the business on, and how that's grown into crypto as well?
Yeah, I was in, it's funny, I was in New York, like literally starting up Finder in the US, and I kept getting asked about Bitcoin, and people just assumed I knew the answer. And I was like, okay, I haven't quite worked out what this thing is. And then a few other people around me started talking about it, and I was like, okay, I better go and have a look. And then at one really late night, a friend of mine said, okay, let's set up a wallet. And he just sent me some Bitcoin. And in that moment, I was like, whoa, this has value. And you just sent it in the middle of the night without anyone doing anything. And I was like, there is something going on here. And so we started writing about it on Finder, writing about Bitcoin, writing about Ethereum, writing about just, and people needed information. And that set me on a quest of learning. And I built a YouTube channel, started interviewing a lot of founders, then built an over-the-counter desk, and started learning about how liquidity works around the world. Did a bunch of investing. Then we built a product called Finder Wallet, had an earn product. Unfortunately, had a run-in with ASIC, which I can talk about
later.
Yeah, a bit spicy, that one. And, I think if I was to try and boil this down, it was the intersection of finance, technology, and marketing. That's how I've always seen it. And those three elements combined, I love a lot of those elements. I think in the finance, I was quite weak, and it's something I basically got a crash course in investment banking, I feel. The life cycle of a company, and I really learned to trade from it. And I think I brought a lot of the thinking has had to adapt as well. There's a very different set of marketing principles within crypto that don't work in Web 2. It's just very different. And I think the journey has been, again, one where I think one of my values is about learning. And I just am so curious. And I felt the same feelings in 2001 when I started building websites, hosting websites, started, selling them, building them. I was like, this is going to be big. And I felt that same feelings, and I wanted to just keep going, and I just went down into the rabbit hole.
Fred, you mentioned there that the the way you position in crypto, the way you built your business with the crypto connectivity is very different to the rest of your business. What were some of those key differences? Why are crypto people different, and how did you need to adapt?
There's a thing that took me a while to understand in crypto where people, like, there is a monetary aspect that drives it, unlike, something where, if I was to connect this to, it's a bit like someone who follows a football team. They'll always cheer for their team, regardless if they're losing. They'll always support that team. The ref was biased against the team. And there's this tribalness that comes with when you hold a coin, you invest in it, you believe in it. That's another really key thing. You believe in the team, you believe in the mission, you believe. And that can trump logic and rationality. And that is really quite difficult to deal with. Like, when you're used to, in my case, we're used to consumers looking at financial products or utilities and going, hey, that's cheaper than that one. That product's better than that product. I'm going to go for that one. And the market herds to those products, right? And people want to know what they are and why. And in this case, you can get people who, regardless if the price is tanking, regardless of the price, if the project does not do anything, they don't care. They will continue to support it. They'll continue to buy it. They'll continue to promote it. And in fact, sometimes they go even harder when it goes down. And that tribalness, that community marketing, the one-to-one nature and word of mouth and the connectivity of the networks of cryptocurrency and how strong it is compared to traditional products where you do have tribalness built around some products. People do love and they believe in them, especially cars or certain financial, FinTech companies. People will tribally protect them and rave about them, but not to the level of in crypto where you have, and Charlie Munger talked about this, find me the incentives and I'll tell you what's going to happen. And I think that deep connectivity means that you have different channels available to you. You can do a word of mouth campaign and it'll actually do something. You can do a campaign purely based upon Discord. That's a very closed community, closed idea, and have a massive impact. You can create memes, like just GIFs, and they'll have a big impact because it raises the flag of the tribe. It reincites the message, and it puts a package into the networks that have been established in crypto, where a lot of it's in Telegram channels, WhatsApp groups that are very, very powerful and strong, and it moves markets. And the messages move at light speed because of that connectivity now. And this is you just don't see that to that same level of velocity and speed. It's a little bit in stocks, but it's just nowhere near as connected where the consumer or the end customer, the token buyer you're marketing to, has such a visceral and connected impact to what it is you want to communicate and what it is you're doing.
Well, you're old enough, having built websites in the early 2000s, to remember the new term around the block then around viral nature of marketing, right? Like, it feels like crypto is kind of the true financialization of that viral marketing that's being driven much more organically as opposed to in that .com period where you're buying Super Bowl ads and that central entities driving that marketing push. Feels like in crypto, you only just need to give a little push, and if the community gets it, they become the champions.
100%. I think you undervalue community in crypto, and that can really hurt your project. I think in Web 2, many businesses don't even post on social. They do, and they're great. They don't. It just doesn't. They just. And I think if I was to also just be clear about something, there's probably another aspect to this where there's a differentiation between the crypto token buyer and the end customer of using the product, and they may not actually intersect. some products are B2B that other projects use and people love, but the end customer, the token buyer, never will actually use the product. And there are other products where the end customer also uses the product, and then that gets them excited about the token as well. And I think that duality, almost investor relations marketing mixed with end customer marketing and the blurring of that's what makes crypto so interesting and so different in how you approach it.
So as part of the Finder app, you've gone to adding crypto tradability into the app. How do you find that interacts with your traditional search and compare type functionality, and what's the take up of that been like?
Yeah, the customers, Finder Wallet's customers are they're just very retail. So, and I'll just sort of clarify that. When I talk about retail, I mean they're not doing on-chain transactions. They are buying and holding tokens, and they're just grateful to be able to actually engage. Like, they're just not super technology focused. They want very, very simple interfaces. So these customers are grateful for the simplification and the opportunity to actually participate. So in that context, it matches very nicely up with the Finder service, which is very consumer, retail. Not to say that there aren't very, very deeply crypto savvy people that are using Finder as well. I'm just saying there is a big audience that we identified that just didn't get it. They don't want to go and use a Binance or a Kraken or whatever it might be, because it's just a lot. It's just a bit much. And so we simplified that, and we took really just that layer of customer, and that's who we serviced. Lots of service. You couldn't even withdraw the tokens. You could withdraw the tokens. There's no buttons for it. You just have to email us. But that makes it safe for them. They're like, okay, I don't really want to go and get too clicky and lose my... Basically, the biggest fear we found is they just didn't want to lose their tokens. And I think that's a genuine customer, right? You go back in time and look at electricity. Electricity used to be, you had lights in your house and you would plug your appliances into your lights. That's where the cables used to go. And then eventually we made plugs that fit into the wall that made it safe, basically, to connect two wires together in a safe manner. And I think we were kind of like that plug in the wall and made it safe for these customers to acquire crypto. The nature of those and comparing stuff and finance, it's really a subset. I wouldn't say it's like a subset of like people who are into investing. They'll buy stocks, they'll look at ETFs at those sections. We didn't really see a large correlation with anything else. It was really an investing customer who wanted it done for them and done simply.
And as part of the build out, and as part of going deeper down the rabbit hole with crypto, you got to know the Australian regulators better. If you give us a little background on how that battle started and where it's ended up and what you learned along.
Yeah, so in 2001, we built a product called Finder Earn, and what it allowed you to do was access yield in crypto. We did that by customers would come in, they'd put Australian dollars in, they would convert it into a stablecoin. In this case, it was True AUD, and then they would lend that stablecoin to us, and then in return, we would pay them a return. It's very analogous to securities lending, where investment banks have big amounts of stock, and then they lend those out to people, and the people who own the stock, they pay them a fee, and that's how people go short, essentially. We were then at a time when one of the big exchanges, FTX, sort of blew up, and basically the regulator wanted to go and shoot someone. And unfortunately, we looked like a pretty juicy target, and they took up this up against us and started to proceed to investigate us. and threatened us actually initially with jail time for 5 years, me personally. Which is kind of like quite aggressive, right? You know, you're trying to go and innovate, and that can lead to jail. And it's a little bit of a conflicting, let's say, move to encourage entrepreneurialism and innovation in a country. And they then proceeded to go and sue us in the federal court for having an unlicensed financial product. We defended ourselves and won the first case. Then they went and appealed that case again to 3 other judges, and they lost unanimously. All 4 judges unanimously threw that case out. And they could have taken it to the High Court, but they chose not to. And so that case is now ended, and it is case law. And in fact, did lawyers in the crypto space come up to me, and they know me from the legal side, and they go, "Oh, we read your affidavit. We've read, what you did. That's really smart how you went about. You interpreted the Corporations Act." I personally went to the law and unpacked it to the level where a former federal judge agreed with me, and our internal team. Our law firm agreed with us. Like, we went to the nth degree to be compliant. And we have licenses to remove doubt in multiple countries. It's not like we're not a regulated, not for regulation and compliance. But they agreed this is not a financial. This product is not a financial product. Firstly, crypto is not a financial product, and ASIC even said that. And this product you've constructed is not requiring a financial services license. And now the federal court agrees. But the damage was incredible. We're talking personally that it has hurt me a lot. It really was a very, very challenging time. The company also took a very big hit from that, reputationally, all sorts of things in the media. Many, many, many different dimensions of it have hurt. But I would say, if I was to zoom out on that, I think that's the path of an innovator. That's what you get. The Wright brothers didn't have a pilot's license. Fortunately, the US government didn't go and sue them for it, but and so I feel grateful now to have gone through that journey, and all of the things that I've learned, some of probably the hardest, most brutal lessons I've learned in business.
So we've seen a global trend towards more accommodative, growth-focused regulatory and legislative settings around crypto. Do you think, the pain you went through with that personal and finder struggle, do you think that's helped move the Australian lens of how they're going to look at crypto going forward? Do you think you've helped pave the way for our small island to start following the precedents offshore?
I've read some of the Treasury's new proposals, and they do definitely make mention of the areas which were very close to us, and they kept it very open because they didn't know which way the court was going to rule. I think the ruling, but it means that this, if they want to control it, or in some way, shape, or form, that it does not fall inside the current. You can construct essentially a product that does not meet and does not fall in to the legal framework of Australia. It's proven in court, and that's a big deal, right? Like that's probably the edifice that will be, I think, a lot of regulation will be built upon, and specific areas that will be investigated because of that. I do think that from a momentum perspective, like you were talking about, the posture of the government, I don't think it has changed yet. I don't think there's suddenly this big leaning into it. But I do think that they may have been slightly taken aback, where they just assumed this is a cowboy, crazy guy on the street trying to do something that's unregulated and swindle it past us, to, oh, he was actually prepared. Oh, he really did the homework. Oh, 4 federal judges agreed with what they have done. This is not just a candy bar argument. This is, not armchair reasoning. This is very serious to the nature of our financial services regulation and what is and should be part of the new financial system of Australia. It's not okay to go and shoot bullets at people for potentially doing something wrong when you haven't written the laws down. That's not cool. And I think, I hope that, and I've heard this anecdotally from people celebrate it. They know it was a brutal fight, but I think it has re-inspired people in crypto in Australia to go, hey, the regulator can be wrong. And I'll just share this anecdote. There's a guy, and I won't mention his name just for the sake of it. He used to work at ASIC and he helped us legally. And he said to me, he goes, Fred, people don't win against ASIC. They don't win. It doesn't happen. It's like, it doesn't. And I think that's important, right? I think that's important for crypto. And I think that's important for Australia in the small part. It's good energy. And I don't know what all is going to come from that. I hope something great's going to come from that. I actually don't know. I haven't thought it through enough. But I do, people say like, good on you for taking up and defending yourself and saying no, because they could have just towed out early. But instead, I hope in some small way, it adds to the posture and the progression of regulation in Australia.
I think people have seen me talk on a bunch of podcasts or pull some of my writings. I have a very strong view that technology always wins over regulation. That's a very blanket statement because there's got to be people on the ground like you, Fred, who are willing to take the fight up to the regulator to make that action actual reality. Congratulations on the win. I think it's tough the amount of time that something like that can take from your career. Good you got the result in the end. So let's pivot to something more growth focused and looking forward. You're a true technologist. You've been proven over the last 25 years to have a great read on where technology is going, where the future's going. Crypto seems like it's at a pretty good inflection point of, it's kind of come through the hard yards. It's proven it's got a bunch of product market fit kind of categories. It can add real utility to users. It could be a proper new asset class. What are the things you're seeing now that get you excited about as you kind of look forward for the next 5 years and roll up your sleeves looking for innovation and investment opportunities and ability to partner with new entrepreneurs?
It's really interesting you say that because I was reflecting on, what's happening, like where are we? And we're in this, everyone talks about these Bitcoin cycles to some extent, and there's this weird kind of feeling in the market right now, and it's kind of like, I always think, what's the expected news or breakthrough that might be coming? I was trying to like look at the future and the forecast, and I think that one of the real, I guess I'd say almost undervalued. I'm sure you probably have spoken about this, Richard, as well, and although I'd say deceptively powerful use cases that I think is starting to really kick is stablecoins. And the dimensions of it are quite obvious. You could send stablecoins to each other as a form of money transfers, but the actual adoption of some of the, I look at it like almost ports of money, MasterCard, Western Union, like big ports where money goes in and out between countries, between organizations, between people. I think they really can see genuinely, like Western Union when they began and they were delivering telegrams to people as an innovation, and it disrupted the guy riding on a horse with a letter, in a cargo thing. And, all of a sudden, this was going to be a serious business, and it obviously that turned into wiring money as well around. And I think that in that same vein, we're very close, I think, to a real disruption I'm gonna use that word in its exact form, but many things had to go right, and were just not even in near the wheelhouse of what could have been, should have been, etc., etc. I think some of the parts I look at is, the take up of people using crypto debit cards and how easy it is to get now, and how it's accepted, and it's people just roll with it. And I think that's a big part. I think some of this infrastructure about moving stablecoins around from an institutional perspective, I think that's another thing. This banks, allowing them and their ability to hold crypto in some way, shape, or form as well, I think is like it's talking like very, very like big legacy pieces that had to move, and they move very slowly, and almost you forget about it. You're like, and I think the stat I heard the other day is like Tether hasn't been around that long, and the Tether itself, I remember it was kind of like seen as this, oh, that's really unpredictable, it's probably going to devalue, or every day everyone's going to threaten and FUD it, like literally every day. And sometimes it would dip down. I remember when it hit 72 cents, and it was pretty scary. And I think the thing which I was fascinated by, I read this post about, is just the exponential growth of Tether. And if you actually look at its TVL over time, it starts out actually quite small numbers, but it's actually the actual rate of its growth, even though it is small numbers, is very high. And if you compound that over time, and you look at that and you grow it out, it's enormous now. Like, it is genuinely a significant thing in financial terms. And I don't see that slowing. Like, I can't think of some major disturbance. Obviously, if there's some big mess up in it in some way, shape, or form, but just putting that to the side, you've got Circle and a whole series of other things. But I just think that, my deep belief in crypto, where it comes from, is a new financial system. That's my whole thing. That's my raison d'etre. I think it's just so more efficient way of doing finance. And I think the stablecoin is this incredible use case. It's this incredible utility, and it gives a reason for many blockchains to exist. Like, I think, this is probably a loose statement, but Tron, to me, with its USDT partnership, has made it still a thing, and it was very fast to move, and a lot of other blockchains got clogged up, and that's a genuine use case. Maybe not today. I think there's probably a whole series of other things that have happened and those kind of things. But regardless, this idea of sending a token representative of a fiat currency to another person, and it being accepted as a means of currency on a 24-hour, 7 days a week basis, where no one else is in between, that is a very, very powerful idea that I don't think has fully recognized. But if you think about it today, now imagine that in 5 years' time, I think we are going to see that virus and that sort of garden bloom into, like, that would be very high fertility of potentiality and its margin. Where do I see that? You could see a 10x easy in that without over 5 years. Not, and that's comfortable, let alone really progressively moving it. I think tokenization of stocks as well is starting. It has a lot of potentiality. In 5 years' time, maybe much more of a thing. It's got a natural competitor with some relatively, legacy systems, but you're talking, unfortunately, incentives which make it very hard to move. Again, not good grounds, probably needs a bit more time, but I think you will see some movement there. I think the root of those things and what happens after you get a lot of stablecoin movement, you get a lot of payments starting to flow firstly through crypto and not through other rails. What comes from that, I think, then are probably a massive growth in applications that make that simple for the common person to use. And I think you talk about this a lot, but I think you'll see the power shift from the chain and the stablecoin over to the application where people assume this technology works. You know, I can get a phone call from a whole different types of mobile phones, and I can even do it over my computer. I can call someone. There's a whole series of substitutes for it. I don't really care how it is, but the way the application, the interface, and its ease and its adoption, I think the focus will shift to that. And I think over the next 5 years, we're going to see, and this is a big prediction, but I think we're going to see a very dominant app globally come up and take a huge amount of market share worldwide in payments.
Yeah, I think a lot of what you're talking about there matches in with the way we're constructing our portfolios. That, you know, we've gone through that period of working out what works in crypto. What do people want to use that actually adds utility, right? And stable coins is a super obvious high utility game changer that everyone could get their head around. I think one of the interesting things, and I'd be interested in your perspectives, is you mentioned earlier about the differences between marketing and the virality, say a Web 2 business and a Web 3 business. And I guess the other piece of the puzzle we see is we've got some really great entrepreneurs that have built some cool products, but the pool of marketing talent in crypto is pretty small and pretty inexperienced. You're in the Web 2 world as well, where the pool of marketing talent is super big and super experienced and have a whole lot of tricks that around how to grow products at scale. I think one of the things we find interesting at a VC level, would be interested on your take, is marrying those new products that crypto's now developed, and we've spent a lot of time throwing a lot of VC dollars at getting there, up with that engine of marketing that then can take them to that mass market. Not just that person that wants to use something kind of cool and different, but that person that wants, like you spoke about earlier, just wants point, click, done. Just wants something better and faster than what they're using.
I think that if I was to talk about this, what I've seen before, I remember a time when Yellow Pages marketing was still big. You know, I was genuinely competing with that, building websites.
You might need to remind people what Yellow Pages even was.
Yeah. So it was a big book of ads, basically. You wanted a plumber, you went to the P section and you looked up plumber. You know, you wanted a lawnmower, you went to L. And there were a whole series of ads in it. And there were actually brilliant marketing that was done within that, right, to compete.
Like calling your business Aardvark Plumbing, so you had two A's and you're top of the list.
AAA Plumbing. The moment in time, if I was to then connect this together, is I remember when direct mail as well was very popular. And I also remember when fax marketing was very popular. And I remember the changeover point when email started being much more potent and stronger, and Google search marketing being, you know, those two things combined together were lethal weapons in the marketer's toolbox. But I think what does it mean? What does that actually mean is these were not, you didn't, you know, the plumbing, AAA Plumbing didn't go and build a website and then go and take up Google search marketing until much later. What actually happened was the new products, the new services, the new businesses were actually first, and they didn't even bother with the other type of marketing. They didn't even know it existed. And they were born in, you know, just like with crypto, doing the tribal marketing, doing the Discord, doing the AMAs, doing tweeting. And that's where they were born. I think then what happened was these organizations realized they needed bigger reach. So to these fintechs and these tech companies, they needed bigger reach. They needed to get out of the internet because there weren't enough people in the internet in the first place. We already covered all those people. We need to go and get some new ones. And that's the moment in time when reach becomes a problem. And if reach is a problem, that's when you need essentially masters of the other mediums, which are very highly trafficked by people who aren't necessarily already in your demographic. And if I was a person to tell a story on that, it's the moment in time, it was about 2012 for us, where we started TV advertising. We were just purely on the internet. No one generally knew of us. And then we started buying TV ads. So we had to learn how to make a TV ad. Now, fast forward to today, 2025, we make ads with AI. We make ads, TV ads with, they're not even, like, it's wild what we do today. But the medium is still very strong. And there's this human sort of trust that comes, oh, if you've bought a TV ad, it means you've gone through a whole rigor, and there are these standards and bodies that sort of protect it. And it's hard to go and do. And everyone knows it's expensive. So you get a little bump in trust from that. And that starts to build brand as well. I think that's why you've got these organizations sponsoring YouTube channels, sponsoring podcasts. That's kind of like a step out of that. You've got then stadiums. I think eventually when a token has a stadium sponsorship, that's probably going to be a big day.
FTX had one.
FTX had one. Crypto.com has a lot as well. I think what I've always thought about with this is, instead of if you've got a crypto project and your interface to start says connect wallet, you're not ready. If it says sign up and you log in with a passkey or a Google login, you're probably a bit closer. If it has an offer on the front of it that a 12-year-old can understand, you're much closer. And if it has then I think I'm going to say this in a weird way, but I think the litmus test for me is, you look at if the default background color of your project on your website is black, then you're still a Web3 project. You're not ready for Web 2. Like, as much as, it's all cool and all the fancy, and the darkness and everything, I get it. You're cool crypto. Sure. If you've got a blue color like Finder and blue and white, Coinbase, I think TransferWise initially, Revolut, not Robinhood, but, the whole series of PayPal, Microsoft, when you go to the blue, I almost think that's when you're consumer ready, you've got the interface. I think the closest and most interesting one to study would be Polymarket and their interface, and how they do have Connect Wallet, but you can just as easily, the interface feels like Revolut to some extent. It feels simple. That is the moment in time when you're ready. That is you're ready for what I call, you've got the products come close enough to the customer, and you've got the product marketers that can promote that type of product. Ain't no point marketing that kind of product where it says Connect Wallet and then people just like, I don't know what that is. Like, it's an error. You're just then, if you've got Connect Wallet, you're just marketing to the crypto people.
I think that's some great perspectives, Fred. And I guess that leads me to our last question. For people that want to look at what you've built and want to follow some of your thoughts around, where the world's going, where technology is going, what's the best place to kind of discover Finder and follow you?
I think I'm pretty active on Instagram these days, and you can just hop on. I don't have a huge following there, but I do promote my stuff and I put out my thoughts. I think it's a great place to go. I'm on TikTok as well. People are actually more popular on TikTok than on Instagram for some reason. And I do write on LinkedIn. So my thoughts are quite business focused, and then really retail consumer insight. I think other people, like, I'm not big on Twitter. It's just, I may think those thoughts. I have rational thoughts. A lot of the ideas I put together are boiled down simplifications of what I see in the market, so that the largest amount of retail can understand.
That's awesome, Fred. Thanks for joining us. I've appreciated going on the crypto journey with you, your views around technology, the interaction of crypto with the FinTech world, and all the experiences you've got to bring to that. It's been invaluable for me, and just appreciate you sharing them with our viewers today.
Thanks so much for having me. I hope, and I just, you've always been, I think, what a valuable and pioneer of the funds management. I think DACM's like a shining star.
Appreciate it, Fred. Thanks for that. Cheers.
I thought it was like, I really enjoyed that intersection. I don't think anyone's spoken about that before.
No, it's a big part of ours, like Fred, because I mean, obviously I'm pretty old for crypto guy, right? So I think there is, I mean, that's one of the foundations I built the firm on, that I've kind of seen this movie before, right? Like it was, interaction between, physical newspapers and internet blog posts back then, but it's the same movie, just with sort of different actors this time around. So I think some of the stuff you talked about, wires and, what was the other one you said? Fax marketing. Geez, I've forgotten that old chestnut. I think that stuff's awesome. Yellow pages. Wow. It's actually not that long ago. We sold the yellow pages when I was at the New Zealand yellow pages for like $4 billion when I was at Goldman in 2006 or something like that. I mean, it's only less than 20 years ago that those things were worth multi-billion dollars. It's literally worth zero today.
I think the other thing, I remember that, and I think it's so interesting if you think about it, that gives you your intuition, Richard.
I think it's much easier to follow a path that you've kind of already seen once before, right? And look, there's some differences. You get some things wrong, but you've got to have, I think when you're investing with a sort of long-term focus, you've got to have a roadmap, right? You've got to have some vision for where things are going. It's just not wake up every morning and change your view. It's just some people can do that, but that's not our skill set. And I think that's, very, very few people can be effective at doing that. But if you try and build a roadmap of where technology goes, because I think even if you go back to the railways, disruptive technology follows a similar path in my view. I mean, similar path at a very macro level, but obviously at a micro level, extremely different. Disruptive technology has been with us for hundreds of years, and you see how it all changes. I heard a good one the other day, which I wasn't across. Someone was talking about the disruptive capability of saddles. That when they worked out how to put a saddle on a horse, which meant you could have a knight with a sword, you went from basically having 100 men versus 100 men killing each other to something like 4 to 5 guys with 4 to 5 knights on a horse can kill about 100 guys on foot. So like even disruption around stuff like that, right? Small technological kind of adaptations of putting some stirrups on a guy so he can now slice people's heads off up a high. It's crazy stuff.
Wow.
I don't know whether that means I should buy a Uniswap or something today, but just thinking about, if you think about it, there's sort of small step changes that can have like incredible ramifications through just how things happen, right?
Massively.
Thanks everyone for listening to DACM Insights. If you found this interesting, please sign up to receive our weekly newsletter, and there'll be more of these coming as we look to introduce more projects that we find interesting across the crypto space to all of you.